46 is an information item. Guy Preston, the new Executive Director of Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission, is here to provide an update on their corridor study and plans to reinstate passenger rail service on the branch line.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Guy Preston, Executive Director of the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission. I started this role on December 3rd, and I am now fully engaged in delivering transportation improvements in Santa Cruz County. I want to give a plug to Caltrans Office of Structure Construction. Like Director Berman, that's where I started my career, and I'm glad the path has taken me to now Santa Cruz. Thank you to the Commission for the opportunity to address you and provide an update on the status of the Santa Cruz branch line, which this Commission provided funding to assist the RTC in purchasing back in 2012. Prior to purchasing the line in 2012, the RTC prepared a business plan to guide the economics surrounding RTC ownership of the branch line. Several operational and maintenance scenarios were analyzed and helps guide this RTC in the management of the line, consistent with the conditions of the Proposition 116 funds that were used to buy the line. The plan is based around having a short line operator to provide freight and recreational passenger rail service, while allowing additional studies and improvements on the line for potential future commuter transit service. Having lost our initial short-term operator due to its failure to perform, the RTC recently entered into a new administration, coordination, and license agreement with Progressive Rail for the next 10 years. With the passage of Measure D in 2016, the RTC became a self-help county. To help guide the investments identified in the Measure D expenditure plan, which includes an expenditure category for rail corridor infrastructure preservation and analysis of options, the RTC performed a unified corridor study. The study analyzed 3 parallel routes, including Highway 1, the local road network, and the railway. This study is consistent with the CTC guidelines for multimodal solutions for congested corridors. The RTC unanimously affirmed a scenario to leave the railroad infrastructure in place, continue freight and passenger rail in the near term, and advance opportunities for high-capacity public transit service on the rail line. That was a 12-0 vote. Our next step is an alternatives analysis, which we plan to use to help simplify the future environmental analysis of high-capacity public transit on the rail line. While we continue to study transit alternatives, the RTC is actively maintaining the line. In 2017, there was significant damage to the line. The RTC is receiving assistance from FEMA and Cal OES for the 2017 storm damage projects, which will start going to construction this year with completion expected next year. We are also performing bridge inspections to help identify continued maintenance needs. We are working on building a trail adjacent to the rail line and just certified an environmental impact report for one of several projects under development. All of our trail projects preserve the rail corridor for future transit use. We are working with the Caltrans Division of Rail and the Transportation Agency for Monterey County on a strategy for network integration planning for future potential intercity rail service on the Central Coast. This week, we are submitting a grant application to Caltrans for sustainable transportation planning funds to assist with this effort. With that, I am happy to confirm that the RTC is meeting its Proposition 116 commitments to the CTC and would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, Commissioner Gometti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'm the only one up here that's been here long enough from the start of this project in August of '03. I applaud you for trying to get this thing back on track. My concern is I don't see a business plan in front of us, nor a schedule for passenger rail. Have you developed that yet?
We do have a business plan, but it's based on recreational and freight traffic. We don't have a business plan for passenger rail commuter service at this time. We need to perform additional analysis on what the appropriate use of the line would be for transit service, how the what revenue sources are available to not only clear the project environmentally, but also to build and operate the project. At that time, it would be appropriate to update the current business plan to a business plan that includes commuter rail service.
Can you give the commission a timetable or a schedule of when we're gonna start to see something?
So we expect to do our alternatives analysis in the coming year. And by the end of next year, we should be able to start an environmental process. And at that point, I think it would be appropriate to start looking at a business plan that included passenger rail service. We don't have funding for it right now. So it's very hard to put together a full business plan that would include commuter rail service right now. But I do think that that's coming in the future.
Well, let's see, 2003 to 2019, we can't wait much longer. So is there any way to expedite this?
Well, we would certainly be happy to accept whatever funds are available to assist us in working through an environmental document. Our sales tax measure provided 8% for additional analysis and for maintenance of the line. Right now, our measure is only 2 years old, so we need to accumulate enough money and we need to work on grant applications to be able to put together enough funding to do an environmental analysis. We've received a lot of support from Caltrans, and we know what funding opportunities are out there, and we're positioning ourselves so we can be able to do that.
I'd appreciate it if you'd work with our staff and put together some sort of schedule, as nebulous as it might be. We really just don't have a schedule in front of us.
I can appreciate that.
So you mentioned Progressive Rail and you have a 10-year agreement with them. Was that based on performance metrics? Because you have one short line deal that didn't work out. So is this business plan around freight and recreational all tied to that plan and some performance metrics?
There are performance metrics in the agreement itself. Right now, the line is non-operational past Watsonville due to the storm damage projects. So once that agreement was put into place, the short-term operator, Progressive Rail, has a year to get to us a plan for what they plan on doing for freight service north of Watsonville, as well as transportation services, which would primarily be excursion rail service. That would be consistent with the business plan that we put together before we purchased the line, but that plan, as Commissioner Guillemette mentioned, would need to be expanded to include commuter rail service.
Well, but you have some kind of business plan available
Yes.
today. No, but for the other one, so in the meantime, so we're just, and I don't know if it's not operational, it sounds like the short line really isn't able to fulfill their agreement, so is it a 10-year starts whenever they can start?
No, the 10 years started once the agreement was put into place, but they acknowledged the fact that there had been damage on the line and that we would need time to repair the line before they could start operations on it. So those milestones were placed into the agreement, and there are performance metrics on how, once the rail is back into service, what amount of freight traffic and what amount of transportation services need to be provided, and the RTC does collect a royalty on those.
And so do you have the resources to get that line back so it can be put into service?
Yes, we do. We were eligible for all storm damage projects from FEMA as well as Cal OES, so we should be fully reimbursed for the repairs that are needed.
Okay, well, to Commissioner Guillette's request, maybe that schedule that we're going to see, we could see the whatever the viable interim business plan is as well, would be helpful. Any other? Yes, Commissioner Van Kennijenberg.
So previous, your predecessor was here with different projects for capacity increases on Highway 1 through the area, talking about the congestion. So are you going to, and are you going forward with a multimodal congestion, plan, solutions for congestion plan for this area?
Yes, we are. The reference unified corridor investment study that I had in my presentation analyzed 3 routes, including Highway 1, the rail line, and local street network. And we're looking forward to moving forward with all 3 improvements on all 3 corridors. Congestion in Santa Cruz is unbelievably bad. Not one corridor is going to solve the problem. So we're looking and we're working with CTC staff on putting together an application for congested corridors that would include Highway 1, would also include the trail adjacent to the rail line, and then we're working with Caltrans Division of Rail to try to advance rail service.
Thank you. Okay, we do have one public speaker, Brian Peoples. I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Hi, my name is Brian Peoples. I'm Executive Director of Trail Now. I'm representing thousands of businesses and residents in Santa Cruz County, including the farmers, which make up 2/3 of the corridor, the farmland does. And I'm here to talk to you about helping us resolve this contentious issue we have in our community over the train. The train is really a bad idea for our community, and the evidence has shown it to be that. If you look at the actual data from the studies that they've done, actually the train has 0 impact on traffic, and it's not affordable. And the only reason they voted for the train plan is to protect Proposition 116 funds. That's the fact. We also have many trestles. It's a little off, but many historical trestles. You're going to destroy these historical trestles for 60 trains a day going 45 miles an hour. That's not going to happen through our community. We're going to be, there's an uproar against that because the corridor is not wide enough. It's 27 feet wide. You can see from the video or the shots, it's right through our community, and that does not work for our community. It goes along the coastline and the cliffs. And one of the most frustrating things is that our tax dollars are going towards a private excursion train. They're spending $1.6 million to maintain this corridor, and they're committing $15 million to upgrade the corridor for excursion trains. That's for 20 years we're going to have excursion trains. We also had a ballot measure passed called Measure L that was against the train in Capitola. So the community, we have 10,000 signatures, and there's multiple lawsuits going on against the local transit agency. We're asking for you, the California Transportation Commission, to help us. Active transportation, we actually have the funds. You want the Proposition 116 money? We're here. Our local community is here with the funding. We have Silicon Valley investors. We're ready to bring money, but the local agency is not willing to work with the private groups because they're so buried under this Proposition 116 requirement. That Proposition 116 is holding our community hostage. It really is holding our community hostage. The actual study that they did showed that the trail would reduce traffic congestion on Highway 1 with 800 people using it an hour. That will, for active transportation, that will reduce it. And there's schools. There's schools all along there. We can't wait. We can't wait. We can't allow Proposition 116 to hold our community hostage. We have the funds. We're asking for your help. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Commissioner Gometti.
Well, I guess my question is it's really a community decision,
It's not.
Proposition 116 was to provide rail service. And that's why the money went to the community. Now, if the community wants to get together and reimburse the state for that acquisition, that's really a community issue, not an issue before this commission. So they need to figure that out.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I suggest staff come back and get a legal opinion as to whether or not the county has satisfied the requirements of Prop 116, or if the requirements have not been satisfied per the state, and if there's any open question as to, because they provided there at one point there was a short line rail road, and I think that was one of the requirements. I'm not sure of all the other requirements, and so maybe at some point in the future we can get an opinion on what requirements have been met and what haven't. Did I miss that?
Susan, did you want to address that?
Well, the Proposition 116 funds can be used, when I look at the resolution in the staff report for both freight rail and I can't find it quickly here, but freight rail as well as recreational passenger service. To the extent that there was a concern that Santa Cruz was going to pull the whole rail line out, to the extent they continue to operate the line, which right now they are, we understand they've got a freight rail operator back. They are working on getting their storm damage cleaned up, and they're going to use that rail for recreational service. It appears they're meeting the intent. Ultimately, they do have the plan for the passenger rail as well, the commuter rail. So, we will work, commissioners, with Santa Cruz on bringing back for you a schedule and timeline. We'll do that, and we'll also work with Santa Cruz to see if it's possible to get an interim high-level business plan that, is not as fine-tuned as it sounds like we can get at this point in time that the commission would like to see, but at least we'll bring something back to you. Okay?
Okay.
Did you
Commissioner
say a
Kehoe.
business plan?
Staff will work with
Some kind of
Guy
efficiency.
on a high, we'll work with Mr. Preston on a high-level timetable business plan for the overarching goal for the passenger rail service that goes beyond the recreational service. Is that acceptable? Okay.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item then, which is 47. Chris?